Welcome, everybody, to the Bush and Me Show, the Last Dance recap, episodes 5 and 6, or as we like to call it here, turning Torrey 1 week at a time to get him a little closer to MJ, away from LeBron.
MJ, yeah, he definitely might. He's probably still staying on the same course because last episode was a little rough for our argument's sake. Anyway. We'll get into it now, though.
Quick recap. We'll run through it real quick. We had a little bit of Kobe. We heard from the Bean at the beginning. Saw matchups with Jordan and Kobe there. Then they went into Jordan versus the Blazers. Saw a little Clyde to Glide. They got into the Dream Team a little bit. Brought back Isaiah. Got into a little gambling issues. Then they showed us a day in the life of Mike. Would you guys still want to be like Mike after that? They got into the Jordan Rules, the book that came out that created controversy within the team. Then you had the Bulls and the Knicks at that time. Pat Riley was the coach. They showed the rivalry there that was building. And then you had Barkley and the Suns against the Bulls. That was a good matchup there. And they ended it with the playoffs going into the 98 season. So we'll go with what were your guys' initial thoughts through the whole 2 episodes?
Torrey, I'll let you start.
Hey, didn't learn anything else new, man. It's the same guy. The same guy, competitive, one of the best. I enjoyed this episode a lot because he touched on so many different subjects. You're able to see the way he impacted the game as a player, but also to see the transformation from him just being, a young star in the league to being a man. His mindset, the way he was, thought that was awesome to watch. But his competitive nature that's still there, that still exists.
It's always up here.
Goodness,
right?
Everything's a competition. The gambling, the everything, man. It was a solid episode, and he opened himself up in ways that I really didn't anticipate from a documentary like this.
Yeah, it's all been enjoyable to me. Honestly, just kind of seeing the highlights and kind of recapping the finals of when they went back to back and they won it away from Chicago. That right there, I remember that vividly in my head. So when I saw that kind of it took me back just to see the superstar that he was and kind of pioneered that for the rest of the guys that like your LeBrons and your Kobe's. Like he kind of pioneered that, and not just in the superstar way, but in the shoe game as well. Like I know we're going to talk about that, but just to kind of see where the Jordan and the contract, where it all started at, the numbers and what Nike was able to sell, and kind of where that, where the Jordan brand is now, it's pretty cool to see. So it's just been great. Just like you were saying, Torrey, his competitive nature, it was on from the time he got up, from the time he went to sleep, he wanted to win at everything, and it showed, in every way.
I'm a competitive guy. I like to gamble a lot, but I could never see myself gambling on throwing a quarter. Who gets closest to the wall? That was pretty crazy.
And listen, when you're in the locker room, when you're in that professional locker room, there's some money being thrown around on some of the craziest games, and that was just some game that they made up to pass the time in that room. It's happened. I've been a part of games like that where it's just, who the hell made this game up? And next thing you know, you might have a couple dollars out there to see if you can, make the bouncy ball, in the laundry bin somewhere, So it's always something. That's just how the locker room is.
Let's go back to Kobe for a second because we got to see a little bit of the rivalry. You got to hear Kobe say he hates the comparisons to who would win one-on-one because he learned a lot of his stuff from MJ. So he hated that comparison. But imagine if Jerry Krause never broke this team up in 98 and Phil stayed, Mike stayed, Scotty stayed, Dennis stayed, because Kobe's team took off. The next year was the NBA lockout, if you remember, Spurs and Knicks, but the year after that was the three-peat by the Lakers. Imagine if this Bulls Lakers team was going up. What do you think those matchups would be with Kobe and MJ?
They were going to be intense. It didn't matter if Mike played or not. Like he understood. I think Kobe. I think Jordan saw a lot of himself in Kobe. And Kobe wanted to be like Mike. And going back to what you said earlier, Kobe was pretty much almost a carbon copy of Michael Jordan. He literally pestered him, called him, texted him. I mean, was always trying to just get some game from him. And you can tell just the way that Kobe's game matured over his career and kind of seeing the video comparisons of the two, you can tell he leaned on Mike a lot, man. I thought it was great to see, and it was also very eye-opening, and it was tough to watch Kobe talk about it, being that he's not here right now because he was just such a special player, person, and competitor.
I mean, we say it all the time when we talk about the greatest players. Kobe is the closest thing that we've seen to Michael Jordan in terms of the way they play the game, their mentality. There's nothing like that. And to watch Kobe express his love and support for him and admit, how much he leaned on him for his sport, I think that says a lot, especially for a player that caliber. Oftentimes people don't give folks their flowers and their roses or give them the credit that they deserve. And Kobe, showed his humility, extremely humble in the way he talked about Jordan and what he meant to his game.
For sure.
Good point. Shoe contracts. We got to get into that. It was 84, and Mike wanted Adidas. This opened up my eyes a little bit because I didn't realize when they said Nike, David Falk goes, I went to Nike and said, listen, you're a small company. Like, to hear that nowadays, that's crazy.
Right.
They were a track shoe company. We need to find out what really happened because in this documentary, David Falk says that he negotiated the Air Jordan and came up with the Air Jordan. But ESPN has a documentary called Soul Man with Sonny Vaccaro, where he says he went to Mike and he's the one that gave him the Air Jordan thing. But we got to get to the bottom of that. But what do you guys think about the shoe contracts nowadays versus what happened back then? Chuck, we'll start with you because you love your shoes.
I do love my shoes, and I've invested quite a few dollars into Mike for a good while. But Nike wouldn't be as big as they were if they didn't have Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan's the thing that Michael Jordan took Nike here because his game was elevated. It never went down. It never stayed the same. He was always trying to find a way to get better. So the bigger superstar that they had, the more shoes they sold. And a pair of Michael Jordans, I know when I was growing up, it was a must-have. You had to have it. And that's just because of the person he was and just what the Jordan shoe meant, in the community, especially in the urban wear. But Adidas definitely missed out big time. They missed out big time on Michael Jordan, man. At least they got Kobe. They did get Kobe, but Michael Jordan was the one who changed the shoe game completely for Nike, and Nike needs to thank them. He needs to thank him and Jordan's team.
What Jordan was able to do was special. I was sitting there thinking the other day, like that 90s era and even fandom from R&B singers to whatever. Like it was just a completely different type of fandom back then. And to have Michael Jordan represent your brand like Nike did, it was like Michael Jackson at the time representing your sports apparel. And people jump behind it, man, and it's still a staple to this day. And when Jordan's dead and gone, it'll still remain because of what he meant to the game and his impact to the culture.
Right.
Well, Bush, you said Nike needs to thank Jordan. I think they need to thank Jordan's mom because the documentary also showed that she made him go.
Mama Jordan needs to get an extra kickback. You feel me? She's like, you gonna take that meeting, and that was a life-changing meeting. That's a big call, man. So shout out to moms right there. Moms know best.
Moms knows. All right, extra motivation. We saw this throughout these two episodes, 5 and 6. When Jordan played against Drexler, he had extra motivation because people compared Drexler to him, and he didn't like that at all. He wanted to separate from that. He had extra motivation with Kukoc because Jerry Krause loved him, some Tony Kukoc.
Yo, they dogged Kukoc their first game. Just like all over him.
Abuse.
Straight up.
And he had extra motivation against Barkley because he said he was pissed off that they gave him the MVP, and he said, well, I'm taking this from him then. Think back to your guys' playing careers. Are there any specific moments that jump out where somebody, either the newspaper, the media, was building up a rivalry with Torrey, you in a corner, Bush, you in a DN, that you guys just created extra motivation for?
That happens every week. You're going to see, especially when whether you're the underdog team or the team that's expected to win. When you're the team that's hot and you're rolling, they're not going to be ready, or their offensive line or receivers can't handle these DBs and this front. They're going to surprise them or whatever it is. There's always going to be something when you play sports that can get you on edge, get you fired up. But Jordan was next level. I think he went searching for those opportunities, for something to make him mad, that
He's
he
like
can
in the newspaper, like,
yeah,
he's
like
he
okay.
said this.
And he like, oh, you think
Okay.
he's on the same level as me? Like, nah, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's next level. And the reality of it is, that's the way a lot of people feel, but a lot of people don't say it. And the way he competes, yeah, you're expecting to dominate the team. You know, you get that humble stuff all week. Yeah, it's a great team. You know, we really, and you're in the locker room like, man, we're gonna whoop their ass, like straight up.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
you know, you like, we're gonna blow them out. Like, that's how you feel. That's how you work, and you know, that's what you expect the end goal and the result to be. But watching him and the way he prepared mentally and how he took himself to another level, and hasn't played a game in what 20-something years, probably, or 15, 20-something years, and the guy still feels that way. Like his facial expression says, I still feel disrespected that they tried me like that. He's just a different kind of animal.
Man, he really is. He found anything. And honestly, to be a professional athlete, you have to have something to kind of trigger you. I mean, because, you know, you do the same thing every day. You practice. Like, if you don't find a reason to go out to practice, you know, you go out there to find a way to get better. You know what I'm saying? But then when you have these opportunity in games, I know, speaking for myself, if I played against somebody, my motivation, to be honest with you, was I'm not trying to let my team down. I'm not trying to let my family down. And I got kids back home who, you know, like, I want to play well because I want to help motivate somebody. But sometimes I go out there on a Sunday and I get my ass kicked. Like, DeMarcus Ware kicked my ass one game because I didn't prepare for him the way that I needed to, because honestly, I didn't think he was going to play. He got carted off the field the week before with a neck injury. So I'm like, this guy won't be playing. So, and he came in and we were 13-0 and we ended up losing that game when we were trying to come back. This dude had 2 sack fumbles on me. And from that moment forward, I was like, I'll never have this feeling again, especially if I play against you. And he was like the toughest person I ever played against. I was in the same position the next year on Thanksgiving night, and we were down fighting for our life again against the Cowboys. This time we were in Dallas. First time we were in the Superdome. And I remember coming off the field, and we got beat by a ET game, and he didn't get the sack. They didn't, you know, I don't think they hit Drew, but they made him rush a throw, and we got off the field earlier. And I was like, if we get back out there, like, I'm not going to have that feeling that I had last year. And that was my motivation. As soon as I stepped on the field, it's like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I just kept telling myself that. And that's really how it has to be, because, again, I'm not trying to let my guys down. That was so important for me, you know, in my career. As I grew in my career, is I don't want to let those guys down in the locker room, and I'm definitely not trying to let, you know, myself down and my family down.
Let's get into the gambling problem versus competition problem, like he said he had. I'm a gambling guy, so I get where he's coming from. You know, you like to put money on the line. You like to be competitive, make it worth it. When does it become a problem? When does it teeter along that line? Do you think that being at the casino the night before a playoff game, I know we talked about him golfing before a playoff game. What do you guys think? Do you think it became a problem?
I think it's only a problem if you're losing. Like, if it impacts your livelihood. And just because we think something is a bad habit, like, there's people that drink every day. Like, you might say, oh, drink is bad for you every day, but if you have everything taken care of and you decide to go get you a sip afterwards, like, who's to say that's wrong? You talk about playoff games, and there's times where my man's gambling the night before a playoff game. Well, if he's still in his bed by midnight or whenever his bedtime is, like, what does it really matter? You know, just because you didn't see him doesn't mean he wasn't in his room doing cartwheels, having a party or whatever it was. Like, just because people out in front, sometimes that throws people off. And there's ways that we feel like you're focused or you have to be this way. Well, we all learned. Dennis Rodman changed the definition of what it means to focus and what you need to get right. So that's what Jordan did to ease his mind. You know, literally leaving New York City, going to Atlantic City. Like, it's like a 2-hour drive. And, you know, he did that in his evening, but he was back by the time he needed to be back. So, I mean, it works for him. It may not work for everyone, but it worked for him. And if Skip Bayless or LeBron did that, like, it's just a different era now in terms of, like, the public eye. But back then, I mean, people try to check into his personal life. And to me, I saw that as more of a personal problem than something that really impacts anything else.
You know, most fans, what it really comes down to is you producing. You know, he had to produce on the court. I know of guys we're supposed to have a 11 o'clock curfew, but I know guys who find their way out and, they talk about when they went, what they did the night before the game, and then they still come out and they still play their behinds off, come Sunday. That's really what, at the end of the day, it's, are you producing on the field? Are you putting yourself in the best position possible? Because if you're hurting the team or you're hurting yourself, then it's an issue. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think what did he say? $10,000 to Michael Jordan? To Michael Jordan, that's $10. That's
$10.
Yeah. That's $10,000 to him is not much coming. If you're going to put things into perspective, he definitely had a competition issue, but I don't think he had a gambling issue. I mean, he wants to golf, he wants to bet on the hit. It is what it is. Some guys like to gamble, some guys have their other vices, and as long as it's not hurting you personally and you're not harming your team, you're not hurting your team, putting your team in a bad position, you got to give guys like that a little bit of leeway because he's always under scrutiny, and that's the way that he wanted to kind of deal with it. He wanted to deal with being out the limelight. He wanted to go throw a few dollars around the poker table or whatever his whatever he wanted to play. It is what it is.
And it's only a problem when it becomes a problem. Like, you didn't hear about him being bankrupt. You didn't hear about him struggling financially. So if that would have been his reality, then we're having a different conversation. But that wasn't the case for him.
The other thing, I think, if they win that game 2 in New York, I don't even think it's an issue because nobody would even come up. But since they lost, then everybody puts them under the microscope and go, "Oh, this is probably why they lost."
Yeah, it's always something. It's always something.
Going into,
I want to ask Torrey a question right quick. What were your thoughts and your feelings when MJ didn't endorse
the senator in
North Carolina?
North Carolina, I was very disappointed. Yeah. And I was talking to someone about that this morning. Like, I'm not a person that believes like, oh, you should be Republican or Democrat or whatever. Like, I believe that at a certain time, like, we all have the right to vote for whoever you want to vote for. But at a time, and what it looked like in North Carolina at the time, to have an open racist, like, leading a position, right, like a government position, and you not simply voicing your opinion on that, I thought that was very weak. But I also feel like everyone has their own way of helping. And he said, he didn't want to get into those things, but he supported financially. Well, we all know sometimes, your words or your attention may be more valuable than your own dollar. And that says a lot coming from Michael Jordan. His influence on that may have had more people coming out to vote to make sure, or draw more awareness to it. And to see him not step up, that was
frustrating.
It was, because you feel like, especially as an African-American athlete, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, whether you want it or not. It's not the same for everyone. You're talking about a place where essentially, as a child for him and his mom and his grandma, they grew up in the segregated South. So there is a responsibility for you to speak up on things when you know it's wrong. Again, that's also my opinion. And again, he has his own way of doing it. But for a person of that magnitude, it was for sure disappointing.
For sure. He definitely could have helped out the situation a little bit, but he did help as much as he could. It's frustrating, though, because he knows he has a lot at the table when it comes to his sponsorship dollars and everybody who's endorsing him, and who knows how much money he was getting from Gatorade, Nike, and everything else he was doing. So
he was MJ.
He was MJ.
They need him. Like,
right.
MJ could have said what he said. They'd have been mad all they want, and their kids still would have had a closet full of every color 23 jersey they got in there. There's certain people, and it sounds crazy what I'm about to say, but there are certain people that are kind of above, like, that public threshold, to where it's like they can almost do no wrong.
Do no wrong, right?
Crowd of people. I mean, we literally have a president of the United States that can do no wrong to certain people, right? And I feel like Jordan, like, he was a figure that was so big that he could have survived whatever stick to the ball he would have. He would have been able to set it. It would have been over. Would have rolled over, just like his gambling. It rolled over. Like, you're Michael Jordan. You're gonna go out there. You're gonna win. You're gonna win another ring. No one's gonna care about you endorsing a senator or what you said like one time. Right? You're not on the campaign trail. They weren't asking you to go and give out speeches, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I had to
also
he
showed
said
you
he's not your role model. He said he's not your. He said if you feel certain ways, like find another role model, and I respect that. Like I really respect that.
He kept it real with that point.
He also, you could see it's 6 years removed from the shoe contract, right? So 6 years ago, mom says you're going to go listen to this meeting, and he does it. 6 years later, maybe he's starting to grow up a little bit, and mom says, I need you to go, stick up for Gant, and he doesn't do it. He's kind of sticking up for himself, maybe growing up a little bit.
By Boucher.
my mom said.
Mama said.
I had to ask you that one because I knew I had a feeling.
You knew I was boiling
that's
inside.
why LeBron.
That's exactly why LeBron is who he is. Kobe Bryant too. Like seriously, like there's a big responsibility. Like when you look up to somebody, man, there's people that die. To wear Jordan shoes.
Right.
Is it dead wrong to be dying over material things or fighting somebody or stealing or robbing somebody for some shoes? Absolutely. But that tells you how much Jordan means and what he's been able to build with his shoe. So for him not to protect the people who are at the lowest of the low,